For the latest installment in our International Officer Candidate Conversations, we're speaking today with Leeanna Rutigliano from Suffolk County Community College-Ammerman campus, former candidate for national president. Leeanna, thank you so much for joining us, and just go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience, just with college chapter and any other information that would be of interest to the audience.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Leeanna Rutigliano. I was a former Division I Vice President candidate for the 2020 International Officer race, and I did end up becoming a finalist and an Orlowski recipient, but though I did not win, I did end up running for New York Regional President, and I am proud to say that just today I was announced New York Regional President for the 2020-2021 school year. And
congratulations for that plateau that you've now reached, that latest peak that you've reached in your career. That's a very important accomplishment and a very major responsibility now that you undertake with such a large region in terms of number of people and certainly the geographic reach as well. So again, thank you for joining us. And I would start out by just sort of as a summary is take us back to the beginning when you were first getting involved at Suffolk, and when your invitation to Phi Theta Kappa came down the pike. What resonated with you? What made you want to join, and what made you then, as a member, want to start becoming involved in those early days?
Sure. Well, I just want to also thank you so much for having me. This is such an honor to get to speak with you guys. But I will say that I only joined Phi Theta Kappa a year ago, March 2019. I actually accepted my membership, and I was still, second semester student at Suffolk County Community College, and I was still looking around for something to belong to. It's very different from high school. There's so much going on, so many different buildings that I really didn't know what clubs were offered, and it was very hard for me to try and navigate and figure out where I would fit in and, what I would be good for, what would work with my class schedule. But I ended up going down during our common hour, which is like a free period that every student has to, explore different clubs. And there was a campus activities fair. And I was just walking around, just trying to see what Suffolk had to offer. And Phi Theta Kappa was there. And, this was something I never heard of. I couldn't even remember the Greek name because it was so foreign to me. But I was a part of honor societies in high school. And in high school, I was very much involved in my academics. It was very, very important to me and still is. And I was in every honor society that my high school offered. So when I saw honor society, I was like, hey, this is something that I can definitely, dive into. And at that time, I was not able to join Suffolk's choir because it interfered with one of my classes. And that's my other passion and hobby is music. So I figured, what, this kind of fits in right with my schedule. Let me see what this is about. I spoke to some members that were at the booth. I spoke to some officers, and I ended up getting, a few weeks later, something in the mail asking me if I wanted to become a member. And I immediately was like, I have to do it. This is something that I really, really want to be a part of, to basically continue that path that I followed in high school. And I accepted my membership March 2019, and it just kind of went 1,000 miles from there. I ended up becoming very active in our Honors in Action project. We did a lot of brainstorming at the general meetings that I attended after I became inducted, and it came time to look for new officers. And one of the officers, I believe she was a vice president at the time, told me, you need to run. I know that you're new, but you need to run. You fit right in. You are doing all the things that we could ask you to possibly do as an active member. You need to run. And I was very intimidated. I was very scared because I was still fairly new to college, but I'm so glad I did. I ran for chapter president, and I was chapter president for this past year. And it was one of the most fulfilling things I could have done for my college career. It opened up so many doors to meeting new people at Suffolk, being that it's a very big campus and there's multiple campuses actually. Introduced me to so many new great advisors that I wouldn't have a chance to have as professors. So it just really opened so many doors for me. And I never, ever would have thought that, little me who got inducted just a year ago would become a finalist in the international officer race. That was something to me that was like so surreal. And it was an amazing experience.
So everybody has a unique story, or rather, everybody has a narrative, because they're all true, because every institution is unique. Everybody has evidence that they can point to and share about why their college is conducive to the formation of people for the leadership, and it's conducive for people to make the most of their experience with Phi Theta Kappa. So what about your campus do you believe is enabling the success of your chapter, the success of your chapter members like yourself?
I would definitely say that we have an extremely, extremely supportive administrative team. I was lucky enough to meet with Vice President Adams, and he was 100% supportive of financially supporting my campaign, advocating for my campaign. And I think that is something that brings these leadership experiences to the next level. Because if you don't have, that kind of relationship with an administrative team, you might not be able to go for those experiences. You might not be able to reach for international office. And I think that having that administration behind you and, standing behind you and advocating for you makes all the difference. But, something that isn't exactly part of the campus structure, but comes along with being a part of Suffolk's community is the alumni members that we have. We have absolutely amazing alumni members who are at every induction, come to almost every meeting, come to officer meetings to help us, to guide us. I am lucky enough to work with 3 of them this past year, Nick, Caitlin, and Amy, who have, helped me beyond words and, personally, socially, emotionally, leadership, all of that. They have been there for me throughout this whole campaign. They've been there for me since I took office last year. And I think that having those people behind you, whether it is the administration, whether it is the advisors, or it is former students, just makes all the difference and pushes you even more.
So when you talk about the alumni of your chapter participating so intently in your activities, including meetings, which is very impressive to me, is that usually people that are finished with college? Is it people that have transferred but are still at a 4-year university, or is it a combination of both when you have a chance to interact with them?
It is members who have actually finished with college. Amy Bernstein has actually moved to Mississippi, and she now works for Ole Miss. Yep. So she has totally finished her college experience here. She moved off the island, and she is still able to, call all the time, FaceTime all the time, answer emails, answer text messages for all of us, every single officer. There's 8 of us on our officer team, and we've all had the amazing opportunity to work with Caitlin, Nick, and Amy. And Caitlin and Nick are also done with their college careers. And Nick actually moved to Hoboken, New Jersey, and he comes out to our fundraisers, takes a train at 6 in the morning to get to us. And Caitlin also, has a full-time job, and she is present at every induction ceremony to help us set up for hours beforehand. And it is those little things that make all the difference, because if it wasn't for them, I don't think I would have, the knowledge that I've gained, because, they've had that first-hand experience in the student's shoes, and they were able to, really give such great insight. And even though they're all done with their college careers, this is still a part of their lives. And Phi Theta Kappa isn't something that goes away, once you're done with college. It's something that sticks with you. And they have allowed it to stick with them. And that's, one of the best parts of being a part of this organization.
And amen to the never goes away part, because that's become the story of my life over the last 7-8 years. So
nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, it's so let's then, I would say, before we get into the campaign related questions.
Quick interjection, Paul. That's how long actually I've been around. Amy was IO when it was my first full year as a member.
Holy cow. I was not.
So I've been around for a minute.
Yeah. You're talking to 2 people that have been in this for multiple degrees and have been through a few years worth of involvement. I wasn't involved as a member like Katie was, having been a regional officer like she was, but it was getting a chance to observe mostly as an alum, the people that have come through. My IO connection, for lack of a better term, was Obi. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he was vice president
Mhm.
for
Yes.
a few years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was at Obi's induction ceremony as an alum. It was actually the first activity that our alumni chapter did a few years ago. Was when one of my colleagues, Tyna Jensen, was the speaker at Highland Community College when he was being inducted into PTK. That was in 2016. And then I kept hearing stuff about this. There's an officer candidacy that's going to be coming out of Highland pretty soon, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he was the first person that congratulated me when I was at the regional convention, and I got the alumni award for getting PTK started. And right after that, he went out and won his international office position. And I then later said, yeah, I was joking around saying, this is my son. This is my son. You know, it was quite, I took a lot of ownership, a lot of it being exaggerated. I tried to piggyback on his ride in many ways. But when you have a chance to see someone achieve like that from your backyard and get a chance to see someone from your college, different campus, obviously the main campus, but from your college, to really represent that college on a global stage like that, that's really important. And it was really special. And nowadays, I mean, he's at Mississippi State getting engineering degrees and probably eventually a PhD or something, because he's unstoppable. I like to say, whenever I see anything about him, whenever I see whatever he's up to, I always go in there and comment as best I can. He's faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. So he could pretty much fly so far as we're concerned, because he's superhuman. So far as the Kansas region is concerned, his name carries a lot of value. So Katie's got her contact from that. I don't have that far back in terms of.
No, okay, there's a correction. That was when I was regional officer. That's when she won IO.
Okay. Still, yeah. And if you want to, Leeanna, if you want a small world type story while we're on this, and it's stories like this that make Phi Theta Kappa special, frankly. The year that Katty was a regional officer, I was in my second year at Washburn and trying to get this alumni chapter started. And I went to the Kansas Region Convention because it was here in Topeka. Here at the state capitol that fall. And my purpose was mostly to meet a lot of advisors and get a chance to promote my idea so that they could start referring their students to me when they transferred to Washburn. And at that time, Katty, I didn't know what Katty was doing, but I actually went to Katty's officer breakout session presentation on fundraising that she gave during that convention. And then I didn't know what she had done afterward. I lost track of what the officers were doing. And then a couple years later, after we had gotten started, one of my members had gone to a student organization fair and taken the names of all the Phi Theta Kappa alumni that showed up and requested more information. And so they gave it to me, and I'm looking at the list, and I said, okay, this one I'll write an email to, this one I'll write an email to. Katty Vasquez, wait a minute. Katty Vasquez is at Washburn? Are you kidding me? And it took a little while for us to get her on board. But once we did, I knew that that Katty's instincts were going to kick in. And I said, that's probably the biggest recruiting coup we've ever had. It was when we landed Katty, because I did not know she was here. If I had known she was here, I'd have probably flipped, as I did when I found out that she was here. And when we got her to join, it was something special, because we never really had someone who at the regional level had accomplished something to the extent that what Katty had done. A lot of us, as you'll hear later, are people that made the most of their membership after the transfer process, which is what we want to try to promote. So that's a side observation that I would have gotten to later. But with Katty, when you brought that story up, I wanted to chip in with that's how we came together in that way, through the ultimate small world full circle experience. And that's a typical Phi Theta Kappa story, frankly.
Yeah, it is. But that's what's great about it. That's one of the most unique things about this organization. And
so if we get into when you start getting involved with Suffolk and you start getting involved with the chapter members there, every chapter has its own repertoire of activities that they want to undertake. Some chapters are especially active in the research and the honors study topics and such, alongside the rolling up sleeves in volunteer activities type of stuff, where my chapters that I've been experienced with have mostly been emphasizing their activities. So out of what would you say was, if there was a particular project that you were working on when you became involved with your chapter, that was the first moment that a light went off and you came to the realization that, you know, this is going to be a special element of my education, a focal point really of my life going forward? You know, in other words, the I'm hooked moment. Was there a particular moment where that light went off and you work on something, you said, I really love this?
I would say if there was a volunteer experience that I could, you know, talk about, it would definitely be a little bit later in my PTK journey. It would be after I became president. It was in October of 2019, but it was a car wash that we ran, and the New York region was putting out initiatives, you know, left and right throughout this semester, and it was amazing. And one of them was to help work towards increasing membership of incarcerated students. And this was, like I said, a region-wide initiative. So it was encouraged that all chapters participate and, you know, do what they can to raise money for this membership fee, to, you know, waive the membership fee for incarcerated students. And we decided to have a car wash. And it was October, so, you know, it was definitely cold, but we needed to do something that, you know, would definitely bring in money for this cause. So we said, let's do a car wash. You know, we've done bake sales, we've had bake sales in the works, so let's do something different. So we decided to do a car wash at TGI Fridays. And it was, you know, 10 in the morning. We were there with our soap buckets, our hoses, and our cold water. And we decided, you know, let's just see what happens. And, you know, I think we charged $10 for a truck, $7 for a car. We had so many raffles there, so people were buying raffle tickets as well. And, you know, it was a long day, but we had a line wrapped around the building. We did not expect that kind of turnout, but, you know, people were telling people on one of the big highways to come on down, because we were right off one of the highways, and people were coming from there. We had people, you know, from Suffolk coming. We had family members coming, friends of friends of friends, and it really did just spread like wildfire. And we ended up raising the most money in the whole New York region for this initiative. We were able to pay for the membership of 10 students, which was $600, you know, in just a few hours. It was absolutely amazing to see, you know, one of our first big events as an officer team really come to fruition, and have it done so beautifully and so remarkably. Was, I think, something for me that made me say, you know what, we got to keep this energy going, and we have to do this for the rest of the year. I want to be right up front, you know, every single initiative. I want us as a college to be able to, you know, do that for our community.
So, and that's very typical in its own unique way of the type of stories that you learn when you hear about chapter projects and such, where it exceeds people's expectations in such a way like that. And that's what people remember, is how the generosity of others really sets that event on fire, as you mentioned, and really spreads word and enables so much participation to exceed the expectations of the members, and then enables them and encourages them and motivates them to make it better for the future. You know, our projects have pretty much worked the same way in terms of exceeding our expectations, then making us more ambitious to make it bigger and bigger. So it's pretty, that concept is pretty universal.
Yeah, it definitely is.
I think before we get into the campaign content, then I would just venture into sort of I know you mentioned the first person who discussed the prospect of being a chapter officer with you, and I wondered who, as individuals, if you had individuals to point out, would you most credit with your development within your chapter, with your building of your, what I call, leadership profile throughout the process of your education? Who would you say would be, whether it's mentorship or someone who had an impact on you potentially without even knowing, who do you feel was an important factor in the accomplishments that you've had so far?
So I would say that, you know, we are a big officer team. We have 8 officers, like I said before, but being on a team with 7 other people, all holding positions of importance, for me was definitely an adjustment, because anything that I was a part of in high school, you know, that I had a leadership position in, there was maybe 3 of us, 4 of us, and to double that was definitely an adjustment for myself, and I'm sure for all of us, because we had to really really, really get to know each other on a personal level, get to know, what so-and-so likes, what so-and-so doesn't like, what works well for this person, what time doesn't work for this person. So I would say, honestly, just that experience in itself was very eye-opening for me, because it showed me a little bit of the fact that a leader is somebody who steps aside and lets everybody else shine. A leader is not somebody who stands in the front and takes all of the spotlight, because being chapter president, there are still 4 other vice presidents. There's a fundraising chair, communications chair, historian, and the president is not the most important person. And just because you are the president, doesn't mean that your opinion matters more than anybody else's, because it does not. Everything was equally divided between the 8 of us, and that is something that was great for me, very refreshing, because I know that, when we do projects in school, there's always that one person that has to do all the work. And I'm so happy to say that that did not happen this year. And I'm so happy to say that I know this will not happen for regional. I know this does not happen for international, because that's the kind of people that we're working with. We work with the best of the best people all over the country. And that is something that we are extremely lucky to be able to experience. But if I could name one person that I think had an impact on me greatly in my chapter, it would be Brian Russell. He has been a member for over 10 years, and he gave me so much advice. He has given me so much support, and that's something that I wouldn't trade for anything, because he was by my side throughout this officer campaign. He was by my side almost running against me as chapter president last year, but he decided to step back because he wanted somebody new to get that chance, since he previously had that position. And that support is something that is unlike anything else that I've experienced. And Brian has really, really, really showed me the ins and outs of PTK, the ins and outs of, working with different clubs and talking to different administrators. And I'm so thankful that he is still, a shining light in our chapter, because you would think after so many years he would want to move on. But I am so glad that he is with us, and we actually granted him the award of appreciation this past year for Alpha Zeta Nu, because of everything that he's done for all of us, and he is so deserving. So I would say definitely Brian Russell. I'm so thankful for everything that he has helped us with this past year, and many other years.
And it's not surprising, actually, from when I think about my own perspective as to how people really can't get enough of it. So it's not surprising when I hear his degree of enthusiasm that just doesn't sort of expire, because it's something that hasn't expired for me for 8 years, and it's not going to expire for when I'm out there pursuing my professional career that I'll start later this year. So yeah, it's heartwarming. It's less surprising that it is encouraging and certainly gratifying to see that. Before one last question that I typically ask toward the end, but I think it's very fitting since you've talked about your campus so much so far, before we delve into the campaign stuff. What we talk about it, if you've seen the conversations that we've had with the other candidates, one thing that always mattered to me a lot, and if you see when I've spoken at induction ceremonies around our region, one thing that I always try to point out is, I word it like this, where every institution, or rather every organization, be it a business or an educational institution, wants its best people representing it to the public, to present the best possible image of that organization. And so to me, when you are a member, what that means is that you are the best that institution has to offer, and you are the person who the institution really wants to be out there at the forefront in public representing the institution as an educational option. Now, where we are, my chapter was a tiny regional campus of a very small college as it was, and it was in a city with 4,000 people. And I've lived all over the place. So I don't consider this something that directly affects me, because I was born in a large city. I've lived in large cities and small towns, both. But when you live in an area like that and you see in rural areas, there's a very strong temptation for youth that's unique to rural areas that could influence them in the wrong direction. And frankly, I'll be very, very blunt. In the community where I was living, drug use was a very difficult, and still is a very difficult issue. That is a temptation for people that are particularly high school aged to start undertaking, and it obviously impediments that person for their entire future. And so you see that in the form of, frankly, a rut. And there's a lot of the fruits of people who have gone that direction in their lives in small communities like that. The reason I go through all this is that the institution, the higher ed, the community college, is in that city was what the youth needed so desperately. It was the influence in their lives that would take them in the direction of having a career, having what they needed to go wherever they wanted, and to be a source of good for other people. And what my college was really about was increasing its own visibility, because it was in Wamego, Kansas, and it's right next to Manhattan, where Kansas State University is. And so it's really in the shadow, and people don't know the institution is there. Most people who live in the city are people that are employed by Kansas State University. And so what we had was a real visibility problem at our college. And we wanted to utilize our chapter with the volunteer projects that we undertook to enhance the visibility of our college to people who lived within our city and lived in our county, who didn't know that this pathway to an associate degree, and then this pathway to all of these scholarships, and the pathway to a bachelor's degree was there to be had right in your own city, where you could live right at home and drive 5 minutes and get this associate degree in 2 years. It was an unbelievable opportunity. And so we saw our volunteer projects as a chance to represent our college to the public and potentially illuminate for people an educational opportunity that they didn't know they had. And we were very proud of the fact that our degree-seeking enrollment, not necessarily enrollment per se, but our degree-seeking enrollment rose during the time that we were active as a chapter, when I was active in my chapter, and that we took great pride in the fact that we believe our activities around the region helped enable that growth. And the way it works, particularly through volunteer projects, through service projects, the service hallmark, because you have students who are undertaking projects with different organizations that are providing services to people in need, et cetera. And those people are, the people that you're serving, the people you're working with, they're not going to be going to college. They're probably done with their college education, but they have relatives, they have neighbors, they have people that they work with, and they're going to have people that are considering their educational options who are college aged. And now that person's going to be able to say to those people and influence their decision, Highland Community College, I worked with students who were from that college at our volunteer projects. That's a great institution. Those students were very, very upright, generous people, and I highly recommend it. That if you're a source of that for even just one person, it makes it so worth it. And so that became a big point of pride for all of us. So my big speech there was all sort of taking it toward this question, which was, how would you describe that sense of pride of being a person who can represent their college to the public in that way and potentially influence people toward the community college as an opportunity that who knows what that would open up for them in the future that they may not have known they had if it hadn't been for the work that you students and the faculty who support you were doing in the community?
Well, something that I find very important for myself is to look back on where I came from. And I went to Longwood High School, which I find to be an absolutely amazing school. I had absolutely phenomenal experience there. And Longwood sort of has, not the greatest reputation where I live. And the same thing goes for my community college. There's a lot of stigma around Suffolk County Community College. It is one of the only community colleges in the area besides Nassau County Community College, which is, the other county on Long Island. And there was such, even for me, I was a little embarrassed to actually be attending because, we all have these preconceived notions of each other when you're in high school. And I was the student who got 100 on everything. And when I told friends that I was going to Suffolk, they were very confused and they didn't understand why. They thought, I'd be going to an Ivy League somewhere. And the reason being is because I developed such bad anxiety I couldn't take an SAT. And a community college on Long Island, you don't need an SAT to get into. You take a placement test, which for me was a lot easier. Didn't make me half as nervous. So I went that route, and I'm so thankful I did, because when you think of community college, at least when I did when I was in high school, I thought of people who didn't really care about school, didn't really care about their career, just were going to get a degree and just, to be done with it and kind of, do 50% effort, give 50%. And that is the complete opposite. I find that people who are at community college are more driven than people who go away to school, because we are not susceptible to, the parties, the staying in your own dorm and not doing your work because you need to sleep or because your roommate kept you up or something like that. And I find us to be even more driven because I also work, full time. I go to school full time. I babysit. I do a bunch of things on the side, and I'm so thankful that I was able to, because community college allowed me to do that. It allowed me to drive 10 minutes to class and come home 10 minutes later, or go to work in a 15-minute ride. And it's very important that people see that you're getting the same education. Your degree is the same. And sometimes it's not about the reputation of the school. It is about the quality of the education and the experiences that you gain. And I find for me that Suffolk was not shy of any of that. And we have an absolutely amazing school set in place. I was very, very shocked when I saw how many amazing things Suffolk had to offer. It is one of the most diverse places I've ever been to, and it's sometimes getting overshadowed because of the stigma that is around community colleges. But if there was anything that I could say to anybody who was coming out of high school, if you're anything like me and you're not good with change, go to community college. If you're anything like me and school still makes you nervous, go to community college. It's an amazing stepping stone, because if you're not ready, let's say now, but you don't want to take a gap year, go to community college, because it is that amazing bridge to bring you from high school, or even not being in school at all, to a higher 4-level university. And that is one of the greatest benefits of being at a community college.
It's and I would also say that it helps today. The stigma can be broken because there are enhanced ways that the college itself can promote its environment, its conduciveness to learning, and also the activities and attributes of its students in ways that the technology 20 years ago even didn't necessarily permit it. Certainly in the pre-internet age, it wouldn't have been enabled. So we as a group, I speak collectively, but certainly you have something going for you that will further, I believe, enhance the profile and will enable people to make those informed decisions and be aware of opportunities that they previously weren't aware of, that previous generations in the same situation wouldn't have been aware of. But don't undervalue your own role in that, because it's very much a responsibility of the students to hand down what they received as a whole, where to make sure that others have benefited, that others will benefit from the opportunities they benefited from. And anyone who does anything to represent Phi Theta Kappa does more than they understand in terms of promoting the educational path that they have taken. And what I would say is, in summarizing of what you said about the attributes of the two-year colleges, it is really education first. These colleges do have athletic programs, but if you were to compare just the practice schedule, not to sound all Allen Iverson here, but if you were to compare the practice schedule, at the two-year colleges with the four-year university, even when I go around Washburn, I see the amount of practice that's going on at the athletic facilities. It surprises me. And I could tell you some stories about athletes who have changed or been asked to change their major because of the practice schedule not working with their current major. You don't get that at the community college level, is my point, is that the students, no matter why they're there, they are all there in the context of higher education being the most important thing. And that's something that, we've had this conversation with a couple of the people that we've spoken with over the last week. The Ivy League schools, which you mentioned, there's a rebrand going on in the Ivy League schools, partially through necessity, through financial necessity, where they're actually starting to rebrand and value the transfer students in the community college more. And I think that that's going to continue. I've spoken with, I think, 2 people who are considering Ivy League schools just in the past week. And 25 years ago, that probably wouldn't have happened. And so it's profoundly valuable, and it's through the hard work of students that this is becoming a reality. And so that's where I take pride in what everybody has accomplished, because it's just a trend that's happened in my lifetime. It's just a trend that's happened during the course of during the time that I've been in the community college and been in higher ed the last 8 years. So I think then we'll delve now into the campaign side. I think, Katie, you wanted to start with that.
Yeah, I mean, excuse me, you've mentioned, a lot of people, just being there to inspire you to continue doing what you're doing. But was there like either a certain person or a certain instance, or what was it that inspired you to actually run for office?
On the international level, you mean, right?
Right, right.
Sure. Sorry, I just wanted to clarify, because there's a different person for each. I would say, I know that I've mentioned her so many times, but Amy really, really, helped me make that decision on whether or not I was going to run or not, because I was originally planning on running for regional. And that was, where I was going to stop. I wasn't going to run for international. I was going to stick with regional because I felt it was more in my comfort zone. I felt like I had a better chance because I'm still a fairly new member. But Amy actually was on the phone with me and one of my advisors, Professor Kylie. And she says, "So why aren't you running for international?" And I said, "I don't really know. I don't really have an answer for you. I just didn't really think it was in my range, in my, range of accomplishments. I didn't think that it'd be something I could achieve. And to be quite honest, I wanted to actually win. I wanted to actually have a position because I wanted to make a difference. And yes, you can still do that without having a position, but I wanted to go into something I knew I had a shot in. And I didn't really believe I had a shot at international. But after speaking with her and hearing a lot more about her experience, even though it was a few years back, all of it still holds true. And I just said to myself, look, I was supposed to graduate in May of 2020, but I decided to stay an extra year and drop down to part-time so I could either run for regional or international office. This is my last chance. Why not run for international? Like, go big or go home. And that's basically how I ended up deciding to do that. I just said, this is my last shot, my last year. I was supposed to be graduating this year, and I decided to stay. So there has to be a reason that made me stay. And that was it. That was definitely it. Little did I know then.
And this also, your stories are also making me really think about potential future interview opportunities when we get done with the IO candidates for this year. And I'm starting to think about past IOs. Just with as much credit as you're giving Amy here, I'm thinking more and more that we ought to be going in that direction too.
Absolutely amazing. Definitely.
So yeah, I also wanted to point out that I'm going to ask you a little bit later about what advice you would give to people who potentially take the path that you are taking and running for office at any level like this. And in terms of the extra year, just remember this. It's the investment of the extra year in terms of the merit that it will get you later on monetarily and otherwise is easy trade-off. It's a trade-off you make a million times over. So anyone who's thinking about that, investing an extra year at your college, it is not a big deal in the grand scheme of things whatsoever. And I can speak of that personally because I am a person who didn't start their community college journey until age 23. Didn't start at the community college until 23. So you're going to probably be done before at an earlier age than when I started. And I'm 30 and I'm still here getting another bachelor's degree, my 4th degree total, counting my master's. So it's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things for an extra year. And a lot of people actually utilize that experience I've seen. Where it actually almost serves as a respite for them and almost as a way for them to recharge while they're channeling their energies in something that's so enjoyable as the officer responsibilities, to then throw themselves fully into the transfer process the following year. And so I did want to kind of chip that in when you mentioned that point, because it's something that I think is misconstrued in public discourse many times in terms of, oh, is it worth it for that extra year? And I'm saying, yeah, if you have that leadership profile, you will cash that in literally and figuratively, both at your 4-year university and in your career. And so I do want to point that out.
Yes.
Yeah. So, just in that same line, what's something else that you can, share from what you've learned, in this experience with somebody who's maybe wanting to run, who's wanting to, they're kind of in that point where like, should I do it? Should I not? Like, what can you tell them? what can you tell them to just kind of either tell them basically to go for it?
I would say that don't let the fear of being a new member discourage you. I was not fresh, like I was not just got inducted, but I was only a member for a year before this. So I didn't have as many connections, I wasn't at as many conferences as others. And that I think was the main reason that I was discouraged, because I said, these people don't really know me. They didn't meet me at a previous conference. I just became a member of the PTK members page, of Facebook. Like, I was not sure that I was going to have that same upper hand that others would. And you don't need that. You really don't. It's about the kind of person that you are. And a lot of times elections on any level, in any sort of organization, can become a popularity contest. They truly can. I experienced those throughout all of high school. That is what student government elections were, basically. But you don't get that with Phi Theta Kappa. These are people who truly want the best for their office, and they don't care how many followers this person has, or this person has, or they don't care. She's been to 6 conferences and Leeanna's been to 2. That is not the kind of person that is looking at your accolades. And that's something that we have an advantage with, because you're not in a setting where there's people who are not really caring for what you can actually do and just want to see like a popular name on a ballot. And I think that that's something that we should all take into consideration, and take into consideration as soon as you possibly can, because the more time you have to prepare, the better. I ran on a week's notice before handing in my application, and even though it worked out great for me, sometimes it is better to have more time, because there's a lot that goes into this campaign, and especially it being online this year, even more so. We didn't expect that, but it's great to just have things prepared already, so you're ready to go. And although I was prepared when campaigning did begin, it was stressful to get things done in that short amount of time. So if you are thinking about it, take as much time as you need, but start early, because you can do amazing prep work in a few months' time, and you can make amazing connections in a few months' time.
And with that, you kind of segued into the next portion. What was kind of, I guess, your campaign day? What did it look like in terms of, how you said that we switched over from that face-to-face to the online? How did that work out for you?
That was actually pretty challenging for me. Being that I am I guess, I don't know if it's that I'm a perfectionist or that I'm like a very type A, like anxious kind of person. I was scared to put my phone down throughout this campaign, because I did not want to miss an important message. I did not want to miss a potential voting delegate messaging me and having them think, oh, she doesn't care, she didn't answer me in time. So that was something for me that was very hard to work through, because I've never done anything like that. I am a person who uses my phone a lot, but I know when to put it down, and I know, when I can check it again. And, if my phone dies, it dies. But during this campaign, if my phone died, I was freaking out. I was very nervous, and I was having a meltdown, because I didn't want to miss, any potential conversation, any post. I couldn't, because that was what our campaign was solely based on, was on yourself through a screen. And it was hard. It was definitely hard. As soon as I woke up in the morning, I was saying, what did I miss when I fell asleep last night? And I was scrolling, couldn't even get out of bed until I finished scrolling, till I finished answering messages. And although it was amazing, and I've made actually some incredible friends through this, it was hard. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it, and I don't think any of us will, because we were all able to acknowledge that this was definitely a grueling process, especially that it got extended, that instead of our campaign on social media being like 2 weeks, it was almost a month. It was short of a month by 2 days. So it was a lot of Zoom calls with potential delegates or potential, chapter members who were looking to cast their vote. It was a lot of Zoom calls with headquarters, which were absolutely amazing, though, getting to speak with them. It was a lot of phone calls with my campaign manager, with my advisors, with Amy, with Nick, with Caitlin. So it was never ending, quite honestly, but it couldn't have happened at a better time. because if that were the case and I was still working and still attending school, I don't think I would have been able to put half as much effort in. You know, being that I was quarantined due to the coronavirus, this is what all my time was dedicated to, truly.
So what were your primary emphases and platform of your campaign, and what do you think are the biggest priorities for PTK in the immediate term? That was the emphasis that you ran on.
So my campaign was based around the slogan, "No pressure, no diamond." And it just suited me very well because we were sitting in a Starbucks talking about what I wanted my campaign to be about. And the first thing I said was mental health. But mental health these days can sometimes be overused. And, you know, it seems like a pretty superficial phrase these days. And I wanted to put something deeper into it, but still talk about something that's very passionate, you know, within myself. So I decided no pressure, no diamond is something that fits me because I love sparkles. If you couldn't tell, I love sparkles. And at the same time, you know, we were thinking about how does a diamond form? And we said it forms under pressure, being, you know, a lump of coal in a dark space. And sometimes that is what happens to the best of us. We go into a dark space, and it sometimes takes those dark spaces to push you to become what you are truly meant to be. And that is a diamond. And I definitely experienced that my junior year of high school, and took me until my first year of college to, you know, develop into what I was truly meant to be. And all of those things happened for a reason. And that's something I wanted to make sure everybody knew in PTK, because being a Phi Theta Kappa and you a lot of the time are, you know, very devoted to your schoolwork, and a lot of the time you don't give yourself enough me time. And I wanted everybody to know that it's okay if you're going through these things, but it's also okay to give yourself time to take care of yourself, because, you know, school is always going to be there. Your homework is always going to be there. The second that you finish it, you're going to get more. It's important that you are in a state where you can do it, and do it to the best of your abilities. So my main goal was, you know, not so much, oh, you know, we have to do this, this, and this, and this, and this, and this. We have to take care of ourselves, and we have to get ourselves to a point where we can do this, 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 and this. So that was the basis of my campaign, and it helped me so much. And I am grateful that I was able to help so many others too. I've gotten messages, and I still do to this day, of people saying your daily dose of diamond quotes that you posted every morning really helped me, like, get my day going. And I felt the same, especially in this time of turmoil with you know, this pandemic. So my campaign was about, you can't do the best things if you're not being your best, if you are not your best.
So for the process, obviously with it being changed, and you already went into quite a bit of sharing about that part of the experience, but for the experience as a whole, what do you think you practiced? What skill did you use or develop or hone, or what did you learn the most that you think will be of the most use for you harnessing going ahead with your educational and professional career?
I would say that I am the type of person who doesn't know when to stop, doesn't know when to just turn off and be done. And that's, you know, one of the hardest things learning to deal with as a college student, especially as an honor student. You don't know when to stop editing your essay. You don't know, you know, when to call it quits and just be happy with, you know, the work that you've done. And that is something that I've always tried to do, but I never really did my best at it. But this campaign showed me, like, okay, time to turn off. Seriously, time to turn off, time to absorb, you know, everything that you've taken in from the day, and time to give yourself time. Because I never did that. And I'm sure so many of us never really get the chance to. And, you know, learning more of these time management skills, especially in a more intense level like this campaign was, I really feel is going to help me on the regional level as well. Will help me in my career, being that I am a special education major. The classroom a lot of the time follows you home. So I think that I really have learned, you know, my personal limits, as well as, you know, when it's okay to take that break and restart when you're in a better frame of mind, in a more focused frame of mind.
All right, Katie, did you have anything else about the international campaign? Because if not, I'm going to pivot to the regional campaign.
Yeah, go ahead and continue.
So when the campaign was over and you were then looking at what your options were for the coming year, did you have a intent to, if your international campaign wasn't successful, to pivot to statewide office like you had been talking about before your international campaign started? Or was it more of a spur of the moment thing to pivot to the regional officer responsibilities to pursue those? How did that work?
So basically, the regional elections were supposed to have taken place uh, a few weeks prior, but due to the coronavirus and due to catalyst being extended, they did decide to extend the date for regional elections as well. So for me, it just kind of seemed like one of those meant to be moments where when I was running for international originally, I knew that if I didn't win, that was it, because regional would have already been in place. But being that it happened all the way it did, I just kind of took it as a sign where, like, hey, you know what, this kind of seems like it was meant to happen. And although you didn't win international, another door is open for you, so take it. And I did not stop. The second I found out that I did not win the election, I was like, all right, let's get my regional stuff ready, because this is sort of a once in a lifetime chance of how the timing worked out, that I knew I just had to take the opportunity. So regional was always, in my field division, because that was my original plan. But once I decided to really go for international, it was no longer an option because of the way timing worked out until the coronavirus.
So then, to just a couple of questions about the region as it is before I ask you, because every region is different and has its own culture. What are your responsibilities going to primarily be in your position? Being mindful of school potentially being compromised beyond the semester, depending on how things go, where there could be some more conversions of stuff to online. Just what are your general responsibilities going to be working as an officer team, and how that parallels to your chapter officer team that you've been a part of already?
So I have yet to have any sort of conference with, the officer team yet, because we just, had the announcement this morning. But one of my first duties is to send out a doodle survey to see when we're all available to have weekly conference calls, which would be taking place despite the coronavirus pandemic. But now that we are not able to meet and have our mock chapter in person like we planned, everything is getting switched to online. So it is even more crucial that we nail down a time for all of our officers and regional coordinators to be able to, start and get our region going for the next year, because of the fact that we don't know, like you just said, what the outcome is going to be, if we are going to have face-to-face conferences next year or not. So I would say, from what I can gather as of right now, my responsibility is to make sure that we are all staying connected and that we are all okay. I think that that's something for me that is of utmost importance, just because of solely, of the fact of my campaign is all about making sure everybody is okay, everybody's comfortable, everybody's secure. And that right now is something that, may be drastically changing for our members. And for, our region specifically, we got hit very, very hard. New York is on lockdown still, and they closed schools for the rest of the year. And we still have no word on when things are going to open. As of right now, it is May 15th that we are scheduled to open, but a few days before that, the governor is going to talk about whether he thinks that we should extend it further. So everything is up in the air. There are lines to get into every building that's still open, at least. And if you are not wearing masks, you're getting fined out to be in public without a mask. So right now, I think that we need to kind of take a step back and make sure that everybody is okay and in a space where they can, participate and do the best that they can in the confines of our environment right now.
And
Oh, sorry.
go ahead, Katie. Go ahead, Katie.
I was gonna say, do you think that maybe some of the skills that you were able to pick up while there was that transition from face to face to virtual? Do you think that there's some of those skills that maybe you can translate into your regional position? Where it be that maybe you guys will not have the chance to meet face to face, since you are uncertain of what's going to happen coming forth.
I think so. I've definitely become a lot more familiar with online platforms like Zoom, like Google Meet, like the Google Hangouts, those kind of things. And I think that I'm becoming a lot more comfortable with my laptop. I have more time to explore the features that are on these social media sites. So I think that I will take this time to make sure that I am, fully equipped on all of our platforms, because that might be our primary use of communication for some time. So definitely, I would love to have a lot of Zoom meetings. I've now figured out how to work Zoom. I never even knew what Zoom was until a few months ago. So these skills that I have taken from the International Officer Campaign will no matter what help me in my regional journey, most definitely.
And so for the region, when you discussed the current situation that your living situation has descended into during this time period, it also kind of highlights something that I wanted to delve into, which is the fact that your region is the entire state. And so you're having a lot of different colleges and people from a lot of different backgrounds when you compare the 5 boroughs, Long Island versus upstate. And to have a unified region like that covering so much area, but also so many different colleges and so many different backgrounds among the members. What were your thoughts on how you are able to pull it off as a region to have chapters that do a lot, and sort of what is it like? What is it typically like with all of the interaction among the chapters in your region?
So from what I have gathered, just being a member and attending the regional conferences, is that these conferences are really what bring us together, really what mold us together as a family, because the friends that I made at my first mock chapter conference are people I still talk to this day, who live all the way upstate, in Buffalo, or people who live in the city who are not too far from me, but still, are trained right away. So I would say that right now we have to really work on what we can do to still give that conference experience if it is not going to be allowed for the rest of the year. We are having mock chapter virtually, so it is going to be, I'm assuming, on a platform similar to this, which isn't ideal, but it still gives you some, to some extent, a face-to-face interaction. You're still hearing voices rather than emails, or rather than like Instagram posts. You're still getting that face-to-face to an extent. And I think that is what we're going to be focusing most on, is what we can do if worst comes to worst, and we aren't allowed to travel. But these conferences really are what does it for us as a region, I would say, because we are able to come together at one space in time in this big state, and talk to each other like we've known each other forever. So that's something that's going to be hard to try to emulate via computer screen, but I'm confident that we will get it done.
When, as a curiosity, when you have regional conventions under normal circumstances, do you have anything like a roll call for the chapters when the convention gets started? Just curious.
We do. I was only at one conference because our spring conference was canceled, unfortunately, due to the recent outbreak. But we a lot of the time sat at the same tables, so it was easy for everybody to kind of come around to each table and be like, "Oh, you are this chapter. We're this chapter," and we do a lot of those outbreak sessions, or those breakout sessions, I'm sorry, that we were talking about earlier. So you are able to, connect to people from different chapters, because it's like a random selection. Like, you go to A, you go to room B. So we do have that sense of still, being together as a chapter, but we're breaking out and branching out. So I do plan on definitely having roll call. It definitely, I think, would be good for us to start like connecting faces to chapters and faces to colleges, because it is very overwhelming, especially if it's your first conference.
Because the reason I ask is because a lot of regions do a lot of promotion through videos and stuff of what their conventions are like. And some of them actually make their roll call a competition, like a spirit competition, where they're actually, you make very fancy stuff with music, and people get up there and sing it or play out a skit or something, and it's entertaining as heck. You would not believe, and I do have a playlist of that's all the stuff that I've collected in terms of YouTube videos of what happens at some of these regional conventions. The best in terms of documenting it are Middle States, which is out in your neck of the woods, including New Jersey, and Michigan, where Hadi Abbas is like a one-man wrecking crew in terms of promoting what they've got as a region going for them. But it's you would not believe, and I'm gonna send this to you just as fun, because it's
Definitely.
anyone who's into Phi Theta Kappa will get a huge kick out of it, watching these. But in Kansas we have it. But instead of the spirit stick like a lot of these regions do, we have a teddy bear. It's Channing Bear, and her boyfriend is the mascot of the Tennessee region, so she's our mascot. So it's very cool, and she's been through a few storms of late. She seems to be getting pretty worn down, so we may have to retire her eventually. But I'm always curious about the culture of regions like that. And my guess is with you guys having such a large region and such a geographically dispersed but diverse region, if you guys actually had a competition like that at the regional level for bragging rights, etc., in addition to, like you said, putting faces to names, it would produce a lot of publicity for the region, because I know way more about the Michigan region than I would otherwise, not being anywhere near there, just because I get to see all of their chapters doing a roll call on their YouTube channel. It's pretty interesting. So remind me when we're done. I'm going to send you that link, because you'll get a kick out of it. And
I definitely want to see it.
if you've got a Saturday or Sunday afternoon where you're just trying to rest, and I highly recommend putting that on and actually having a look at it, because it'll become intoxicating. You'll be watching it for an hour and a half on end, however long it takes to watch it. And we have our own one for the Kansas skits that I'll send you too. It's a little bit smaller because there's a lot fewer people participating in them, but it's still pretty fun. We don't do it in person anymore, unfortunately. They changed it so that they have people do a video, and that was unfortunate, because we were going to actually see if we could do an exhibition skit at Roll Call as an alumni chapter. We were going to parody this is interesting with this Last Dance documentary that's being aired on ESPN right now. We were going to actually parody the Chicago Bulls intro with Sirius. And actually, the joke was that we would eventually get Ray Clay himself to read our members' names and stuff and have people get introduced on recording. And I've never told that to anyone except Katty within the last couple of months, until when we got closed down, we said, we're not going to be able to make this happen anyway, so I'll tell people about it. So maybe they can do it when I'm gone. So just the conventions are such a great way to showcase what the chapters are about. And we're speaking humorously, but it really is a front porch and a snapshot of what is your college really about. It says a lot about what the members prioritize and what the college prioritizes.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully you guys will be able to make something happen this year. I'm really hoping and praying for you, because it's going to, everyone will be able to adjust, but it's still a so much more enjoyable experience if it can be done the way that it's supposed to be done. So I would then pivot to, I think, just sort of a perspective on, since you already shared the advice, I would say, if you're okay with us putting you on the spot like this, and you mentioned with your calling for special ed, you're a special ed major, what are sort of your big picture career goals? It's always a fascinating question we always try to ask when we have these conversations with people, as to if you have such goals set out, because you're very early in your educational career, even though you have a major. So what is sort of what you want in a professional career, and how you think the experience has prepared you specifically, you kind of alluded to it, for pursuing that career?
So I work in a preschool currently, and I've been there for 2 years. I started out as a teacher's assistant, and I ended up working my way up to be a head teacher. And this was my first year as head teacher, so I'm devastated, with everything going on. I actually just took my classroom apart yesterday. Took all my decorations down, and I'm getting ready to send home their projects that they never took, because when I walked in the door yesterday, we were frozen in time. It was March again. The calendar was set for March. Kids' projects from March were out. I had projects that were prepped for next week, being still in March, St. Patrick's Day. So I still plan on being in a classroom, because being in a classroom is probably my favorite place to be, besides, being in my house. Being in the classroom is my favorite place to be. I particularly love working with children. I work with Gen Ed population right now, but being that the kids are so young, it is hard to diagnose a child with any disability, when they're 3 to 5 years old. So I'm sure that I will have some students who will get diagnosed in future years, based on, some patterns that I see now, and through my past experience of working with special needs children. But I really do want to be in a special education classroom. As much as I love the Gen Ed population, especially the little ones, I love the little preschoolers. I find myself to be more useful in a special education population, because I've ran a club in high school called Best Buddies, a chapter, and that's really where I decided that this is what I want to do, because I was able to work with students with physical disabilities, Down syndrome, Asperger's, any sort of disability on the spectrum I was exposed to, and it is so rewarding for me, and it just makes me so happy to put a smile on one of their faces, and you learn so much from them, just like they learn from you. You in turn learn so much, and that is just where I want to be. Every day I long to go to my classroom and see my kids. And even though I was there yesterday, there's only 4 of them or 5 of them right now, and half of the students are not mine. They're older kids who need childcare. So I haven't seen some of my kids in 2 months, and I am driving by their houses right now, and like giving them like bubbles and stuff in their mailboxes, but it's not the same. It's not the same. But I hope to be in a classroom, and once I have that under my belt, I would like to get an administrative credential, because I want to keep making a difference and make a difference on a greater scale by hopefully being a department chair or something of that sort, where I can oversee multiple classrooms and see changes being made in multiple and not just my own.
So Katie, unless you had anything else, first of all, and hopefully in the very near term, the current situation will allow you to continue pursuing those goals the way, as I said before, the way that it's supposed to be done in your profession. And so we're praying for you in that regard. But Katie, did you have anything else before I kind of delved into the future, the immediate future questions that we try to ask everybody?
I mean, just a comment really. I actually work as a substitute teacher, and I've gotten a chance to work with a lot of different students, And I just have, just, personal buddies that, I have been wondering, how are you dealing with, being at home when kind of school was your happy place?
Yeah.
And it's so interesting that to hear somebody else say, the same thing that I've kind of been thinking, my area is in biology, but I want to apply that towards teaching, and even then, like, I want to keep, take it a step further, just like you said, and, work administration, see if I can make a difference from the opposite end, in terms of the world of, the field, sorry, of science and math. So it's just really interesting to hear, somebody else's perspective kind of on the same thing, the same thoughts that I've been thinking about, just in a different area, a different branch of education.
And I also, oops, sorry for the reverb. It's also worth noting that it's probably, if I were to diagnose, it's probably why, Leeanna, that you do feel like a natural in a higher education setting, because I think that would lead to a lot of empathy and a lot of relatability to people who have as their stated goal for their career the betterment of other people in a learning environment at whatever level. I mean, obviously, higher ed is an entirely different universe, and that's kind of where I have my background, quote unquote, in terms of my instructional experience. And I can tell you that sense, you can't explain it to somebody if they haven't actually experienced that from what I've done as a TA, as an instructor. And so it's that sense of zeal, obviously you're going to be doing it for a living. But something that I'm going to get into when we start talking about alumni involvement is that I really hope that alumni consider how the community college also needs their support and needs their abilities and needs their talents to be harnessed, because the mission that we talked about before, about the ability to promote the community college as an option for people, there's a bigger role for the recent college graduate than anyone realizes. And if it hadn't been for what happened to me, I wouldn't have known. So I am going to delve into that a little bit later, but you do deserve to be complimented. And as I said, it's not surprising then that you are excelling in a collegiate setting, because you probably have a very strong sense of relatability to what is getting your instructor out of bed every day in the morning, because you have that same zeal for young children. So
Thank you. In
terms of, and this is a question that feel free to not answer, feel free to be politically correct if you want to, just because you're very early on. As I said, you have another year left, but did you have ideas about your transfer plans? Did you have a set idea, or did you have different options you're considering? That will base partially the commercial that I make for you a little bit later in terms of alumni activity, because you know the speech that I'm going to give you if you've seen the interactions I've had with other people, and if you've seen the conversations that I've had about what I worked with Sean earlier a couple of years ago. So what were your plans, if you've set your plans yet, in terms of your transfer goals and institutions you're thinking about?
So I originally planned on attending St. Joseph's College in Patchogue on Long Island. And I actually was verbally accepted in 11th grade, but I didn't have the SAT to back it up. So they couldn't, on paper, actually accept me until I took a test, being the SAT. And it broke my heart, because I knew I wasn't in a place to take it, and I did not want to mess up, the grades that I've had due to my test anxiety. I knew it wouldn't reflect my personal, knowledge. So I said I'm not going to take the test. If I, feel like eventually I'm ready to take it, I will. But I ended up not needing to, like I said, with Suffolk. But I do plan on going to St. Joseph's. I have spoken to admissions reps there, and I am eligible for enrollment. I am eligible for some great scholarships. And that is where I plan on going. That, for me, it was kind of like a no-brainer, because St. Joseph's is like the college if you're going to be a teacher. Although it is, a private school, it is expensive. I do have scholarships that, are going to help me along the way. But that is kind of where I'm set on going. I am familiar with the campus, to an extent. I have friends who've went there and are still going there. Being it online, but still, enrolled in St. Joseph's, and that is just, I think, where I'm going to go, because again, I'm not the type to go away to school, and St. Joseph's is a commuter school, and it is one of the only ones actually that has special education and has it to the extent that I'm wanting to study it. So I think that's where I will end up.
So then, as a pivot, and by the way, I'm probably the only person one of the few people that you'll talk to outside of New York that actually knows there was a St. Joseph's College in New York, because of my athletics operations experience, and because I'm basically a nut for higher ed as it is. I know the St. Joe's in Pennsylvania, which is one most people know, and then New York, Connecticut, and I've actually forgotten where one of the other ones is, but there's a ton of them. And the abbreviations for them that I've concocted on the lists that I make of different stuff related to higher ed are pretty remarkable too. My shorthand would be very, very interesting to you, but be that as it may, just the reason that we always ask people about that is because we kind of want to get a feel for what is the landscape for Phi Theta Kappa members in terms of the transfer opportunities and transfer scholarships that might exist, or the Phi Theta Kappa scholarship programs that exist. So kind of pivoting this back into your region, I wondered, what were your thoughts on, and you have a sort of a set place that you're intending to go because of your major, so you might not have that much looking around at the scene because you have one set place you're looking at. But nonetheless, what's the feel that you have for the four-year universities in the region, and how they value Phi Theta Kappa membership for the transfer students, and if there's a lot of institutions that are really, really seeking out those achieving students, because that really says a lot about a place to me, is do the four-year universities respect the community college system? We're fortunate enough to be in a place that does. A lot of southern states do, frankly, because there's so many community colleges. And I'm always curious when I ask people about the region to get to know the landscape a little bit better. I wondered if you had any thoughts on the transfer landscape in your region.
Without a doubt, there are a bunch of institutions that value Phi Theta Kappa. I know that, like I said, I haven't really looked into other colleges, quite honestly. I really haven't. It's sort of an overwhelming process for me, and I feel that if I kind of know where I'm set at, there's no need for me to look at, every college in New York. So I know just from talking with St. Joseph's, they love PTK members. They give them $3,000 off their tuition, which is great, especially being a private school. And just the fact that you are, of a certain grade point average, like I have a 4.0, being that I have above a 3.75, they take $12,000 off in addition. So it is, for them, a great asset to have Phi Theta Kappa members, because, they are getting to have, best of the best community college students. And at the same time, they're getting, that exposure from Phi Theta Kappa, because they were at, all of our college fairs that the New York region has. There were so many colleges that were there. But of course, I went to the St. Joe's booth because I know that that's where I want to be. But there were so many, Adelphi, Quinnipiac. There were so many. Quinnipiac, is in Connecticut. There's so many colleges that I saw there just supporting Phi Theta Kappans.
And Sean will get mad at me if I don't throw Stony Brook's name out there, just to say, because he bleeds the Stony Brook red. I can tell you that for sure. And I can tell you the story of how I met him later on, although you may have heard that. So yeah, but with St. Joseph's, you got to consider getting them on the PTK transfer honor roll if they're throwing those types of scholarships out there for people. That's a big deal. I'm very impressed by that, and that kind of segues into what I really want to try to promote. And this is my commercial now that you're gonna hear, which is that what we do and the people that we represent are the university-based PTK alumni chapter, which is the hardest type of an alumni association to maintain. The regional-based alumni chapters, the ones that you see getting 5 stars, those are the ones that are the region-based, where everyone who lives in that region can join, and it's not contingent on being in college or not. And our regional alumni association, Kansas, Nebraska region, is great. It's 5-star, and I'm a member. They do, for a region-based, being regionally dispersed, they do a great job. But it's easier to maintain an organization like that because people are members for life. The university-based alumni chapter is so difficult to maintain because your audience is so narrow. There's only so many people. Even if you have lots of PTK scholarships and lots of people coming in, that's still a narrow audience that you are pitching to, and a narrow number of people whose interest you can pique in terms of your pitch that you make to them. And so, but we believe that it is the future of Phi Theta Kappa involvement, particularly from the alumni perspective, because of the increasing endowment opportunities that are out there for people at the bachelor's and the master's degree level. Our goal, really, besides promoting our university as a transfer option, which is what every university should want to do, it ought to be using the alumni to try to recruit members from the community college to transfer to their university. But we really envision our goal also as increasing the prominence of alumni in the day-to-day operations of PTK, because we as alumni believe we have a responsibility for that, because we, as I like to say, hand down what we received. We were benefiting from these opportunities as a member. We want to make sure that we do what we can to ensure that the future members benefit from those same opportunities. Now, I've done that on a personal basis because I help out some of the people from my chapter on their all-state academic team applications and other scholarship applications. That's a person-to-person thing, but when you extrapolate that on an institutional level, now you have alumni like our members do, who volunteer at the international convention. It was in Kansas City a couple of years ago, which was a huge honor for me, who volunteer at regional conventions, but also sharing experiences and sharing stories. It's easier to promote that sense of giving to the current membership among alumni if those alumni are amalgamated at a four-year university setting, because they're still in higher ed. They still have that sense of relatability. They're still recent enough to speak with credibility to the current member if you have someone who's on the fence about even whether or not they want to join. And then they hear from somebody like us who's gotten the transfer scholarships and gotten even the master's degree scholarship like I got a couple of years ago. And what we want to do also is increase the awareness of alumni, increase the role of alumni, so that then the scholarships for alumni from PTK and from grantors at our own universities will increase. And you know, like there's 2 students that get the graduate school scholarship. We'd like to see that increase. I'd like to see 20 graduate students who are alumni get the grad school scholarship that Berkshire Hathaway puts up right now. I want to see a doctorate scholarship. I want to see an award for someone an alumni getting a PhD someplace, because we ought to be encouraging alumni to make the most of their education and pursue higher education careers. First of all, because they can land them at the community college, but it can represent the community college regardless of where they go if they're getting a PhD. So there's a lot of different avenues that these alumni chapters have responsibilities to pursue, and that we consider ourselves as sort of trailblazing and setting that very successfully for other people to emulate. And so I'm trying to spend my last days here at Washburn using this medium of exchange in terms of trying to promote it to an audience like you guys as candidates, as regional officers, as IO candidates, as IOs, because were you interested in doing something like what we've done when you transfer, it would be, since your university sounds like it supports it, it's very supportive of PTK, and that's partially why you're going there. It would be profoundly easier for you, because you would have so much credibility to bring to the table that someone like me, who was frankly, I was all state academic team, but our chapter was very small. There wasn't really much for me to do. If I were at your college, I wouldn't have sniffed the all state academic team. It's just, there's just no way, you know, it's a different league really. But we, through the collective efforts of all of our members who had a single focus to that goal, and through the trust of our university that believed in us from the beginning and believed in Washburn's mission, which in many ways has a very prominent role for people from Phi Theta Kappa and always has, we managed to pull it off. We managed to get our charter and then participate in the 5-star alumni chapter plan. We got to 2 stars this year. If we had participated in Catalyst, we would have gotten all the way to 5, because we even have a scholarship now that one of our volunteer partners endows for us. So my long-winded commercial ends with, if you are wanting to make the most of your membership while you are at the 4-year university, where a lot of our people have made the most of their membership. A lot of our people are the people that, you know, the face of our organization in many ways is Cayenne Eslick. And if you've seen our website and see some of the stuff that she's done, you can see a lot about her. She's been gone for a year now. She's coaching volleyball at one of the high schools locally now. But she is a person who was at her community college, was a student athlete. She was a star, absolute star. She'd been playing D1 volleyball someplace at a big university. And she tore her ACL multiple times. And so she retired. And her last semester at Hutchinson Community College is when she joined Phi Theta Kappa, when she got that invite, because she recognized, I'm not going to be getting an athletic scholarship. It's just not going to happen. I'm retiring. So it was a happenstance and frankly, a fallback for her. But when she saw the scholarships that she got when she transferred here, she just bought in like you would not believe. And she harnessed that through her involvement as an alum in maximizing the opportunities that she's trying to ensure they receive as member. And she supported all of our projects ridiculously well. She mentored our younger members as I became less involved. And she really was the ideal person, the person who we point to as what an alumni chapter at a 4-year university is about. Because it's not always the people who have done what you have done or what Katie did at the regional or international levels who can still, if you haven't done that, you can still make the most and even earn international recognition like I did, like Cayenne has. You know, it's quite remarkable. And the thing about Cayenne that makes her a compelling story is she's deaf. She's been deaf since getting a cochlear implant at age 2, and she was still a student athlete and still, you know, just excelled at every educational institution she ever was part of. And so that's the demographic that we're pitching to as well. Some people don't do the super duper involved stuff like you guys have done, but they can still support Phi Theta Kappa to the point where they're earning so much recognition like she did as alumni. And it's the university-based alumni chapter that could afford that form of an opportunity. And it could bring the best out of someone like it did for her. And so that's the what, that gets me welled up. It gets me emotional, frankly, when I talk about, what this organization can do for people on our campus who have that commonality of experience with our members. We bring people together. We give people a running start in terms of having a repertoire of volunteer projects, for instance, that they don't have to go out and plan, that there's a existing roster of projects that they can immediately get involved with. You don't have to plan anything. It just works so smoothly. It gets them a smooth transition and gets them a chance to become involved on the Washburn campus immediately, when as a junior coming in, they're at a disadvantage. And so you've got all sorts of those factors to consider. But I really hope, especially since what you've talked about, the respect that your university has for Phi Theta Kappa membership, that you would be able to, if you wanted to, if your life permitted it to work, you could do what we've done, and you could do it 100 times faster, 100 times, 100 times more amplified in terms of attention that you would generate at your university and for your university, because of the reputation you've already built for yourself as an involved officer and an involved candidate. And so this has been paid for by Phi Theta Kappa Alumni of Washburn, Elias Saucedo, treasurer. So you see, that's part of what I'm trying to promote. And so I hope that I've maybe sold you on that, because it's a real opportunity. I think we are at a crossroads where the role of alumni are continuing to increase. And as you officer candidates and the IOs become alumni and move on, you're going to have a real opportunity to open up new pathways to the people at the bachelor's degree and master's degree levels. If you're able to make it work, it's a golden opportunity. And I will tell you this, that there is hardly anything that you will undertake in your higher education career, other than perhaps if you had actually gotten elected as an international officer. I don't think there's anything that you could possibly undertake that would produce as much intrinsic reward in terms of seeing the success of others that your work helped bring about.
Yeah.
And so that's my commercial. And we're kind of mentoring a couple of people that we've spoken to in the last week about making this happen at their four-year university. We really want to see the foster of competition build among the four-year universities regionally and nationally in terms of using their alumni chapters to make the transfer process more competitive, and to really have these people start competing for members of PTK, because then the members will win. They will be the ultimate victor or whoever wins the recruiting battle, as it were. So I really hope that that's something that interests you. You've got a year ahead of you as a regional officer, but I really hope that you would consider, following the footsteps of what I've done. Sean got it started at Stony Brook. They just didn't get charted. And I'm hoping that the successors can make that happen. But it's something that it's hard to put into words. As much as I talk about it, it's hard to put into words exactly what it means toward Phi Theta Kappa when we have a chance to support it in the way that we are. And we feel like we're enhancing the belongingness of alumni at all levels by virtue of our activity. So I sort of wondered then, before I get into just sort of a last wrap-up question, what sort of interest do you have? What ways do you envision that you can continue to support Phi Theta Kappa as an alum after transferring, either with or without the confines of what I just spent 5 minutes pitching to you?
Well, you definitely sold me already. I think that you are 100% on the ball with the fact that you have been through the experience. So now you can use your experience to help others who may be confused, who may not know where to start in their PTK journey. And I know that I definitely needed that when I was a member. So, I know there's going to be plenty of other people who need the same thing. And I want to do whatever I can do. I would love to be able to do half of what you've done. And I will definitely need your help trying to get it done. But I really feel that I would love to just make sure everybody, is in the loop, make sure everybody knows what they're getting into, and making sure they're taking every single opportunity that they're given, because I didn't apply for any PTK scholarships yet. And that was because I didn't really hear much about them. And to be quite honest, the financial burden of community college is not that big on my family. So I never was really concerned with, I need a scholarship so I can stay in school. So I never really got too heavily involved in it. And now that I'm aware of all of the scholarship opportunities, and I see everybody with their medallions, and I see, the opportunities that these people have been given, of course I want to do it. And I am a little sad that I didn't do it already, but I don't want that to happen to somebody else. So that's exactly, I think what we were just talking about, that is what I want to do. I want to make sure that no opportunity is missed for anybody, because, unfortunately I missed an opportunity, but I will obviously get to, do that again in the next coming semester, but I don't want anybody to miss one. As soon as you get involved in Phi Theta Kappa, take every opportunity that you get. And I know I said this earlier, but it doesn't matter how long you've been a member. And I think that is what's scaring people right now a lot of the time, that they feel that because they're still new, they don't stand a chance at this, or this. And that's not the case at all. And I think that myself, along with the other IO candidates, can attest to that and keep attesting to that, even when we are alumni, like you've said.
So yeah, I think I can count you in then for circa fall of 2021, staying in communication and seeing what we can make happen potentially at St. Joseph's College. They're not going to know what hit them. Trust me, they're not going to know what hit them. They're going to be very, very happy. Hopefully, they're very happy if they see this conversation taking place. It's also something that there isn't an organization like that in the entire Northeast, believe it or not let alone the New York region. Stony Brook got started as a student organization. They're not chartered. They would have been the first. Literally, you look at, they're all in the South. There's like 16 of them only. And we're the only one in the Midwest, really. Mostly in Texas and the South. There's a couple in Michigan. So you would be setting a real trailblazing example as a college to make this happen for Phi Theta Kappa, and it would incur the envy and the emulation of other universities who then want to keep up and make themselves competitive for Phi Theta Kappa members. So
I'm in. You should help me out.
Yes, and that's what I envision for myself while I'm pursuing my career after I complete my degree this coming month. That's the way I'm starting to envision myself, to really focus on something that I have, for lack of a better term, an experience in, that I can't really teach much people on how to be an involved PTK member, but I can share my experience with people after I'm done with college as to how to do what I have done at the Florida University level that has been such a source of reward and joy for me and for all of our members. Katie, if you didn't have anything, the only thing I want to delve into last, because I know we've taken a lot of your time, Leeanna, and I do appreciate it. And I know that at 12:30, I've got Cindy Owen coming up next, so I don't want to make her mad at me.
I love her.
But
tell her I said hi.
But it's just I do want to ask sort of the character, the big, deep character type question that we've asked everybody, because it's been pretty inspiring to hear their answers. But Katie, did you have anything else?
Okay, so this whole time, good thing I've been off camera. I've been kind of sneaky and I've been messaging Amy.
You have?
I have.
Amy.
I just thought I wanted to share it. Obviously, the other, people watching us, weren't able to see it, but, I was like, this whole time I was being kind of sneaky and like turning the camera off and muting it. It's just really cool. There's just this thing that we've been talking about, the communications and the connections that you make through PTK, and this is definitely an example of one of them.
And could you try to get Amy to give Leeanna a shout out live potentially? See if she has a message to deliver.
Okay. Let's try it. Let's see.
All right. So then while Katie's trying to pursue that, Leeanna, just the question that we try to ask everybody is in these conversations is, if you were to summarize with one characteristic, one character trait, character attribute that you would aspire to have the people at your community college say about you 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that you demonstrated that attribute and it made an impact on them, what character attribute would you choose? What character attribute would you most strive for?
Something that I strive for all the time is to be empathetic. And I think that I am almost too empathetic sometimes. I internalize a lot of things. I take a lot of other people's problems that I care about and make them my problem. And that is something that I am proud to do, because I know that I'm helping somebody, when I do that. And I know that I am getting just a taste of, you know, what their life is like, and it puts a lot of things into perspective for myself, and I'm sure for others, because, you know, there could be something going on in your life that you know is like to you seeming like the end all, but when you look at, you know, maybe one of your best friends and see what they're going through, it kind of gives you the chance to step back and say, you know what, this might not be so bad, and if she or he can get through it, I can get through it. So I think that I always aspire to be that person that understands and you know, tries to do whatever I can to help, because I for a long time didn't know what anxiety and depression really meant. I was very naive, and I was like, I don't think that's real. I think that people are seeking attention. And I'm going to be honest, that's what I thought. And I'm embarrassed to say that that's what I thought, but I was young. I was, you know, 14, 15 when this started happening to me. So before that, I really didn't know. And I want to make sure that nobody has that notion like I did, because it is real. These things are real. You know, any sort of struggle that somebody goes through that you can't see on the outside is very real, and it is just as real as a broken leg. And that is what I want people to remember me for, you know, the fact that I was able to understand and hopefully just make the tiniest bit of a difference, or make, you know, something easier in somebody's life, because I I was fortunate enough to have those people in my life, and they really are the ones who taught me that. Especially my mom. My mom, uh, you know, despite anything that she's dealt with in her life, she put everything aside for me. And you know, when I was going through the things that I was going through, nothing else mattered to her, and her main goal every day was me. And she was extremely selfless, and I think that I have emulated that, and I hope to emulate that and continue to emulate that, especially as a special ed teacher, because that's extremely important. Your kids always come first, and I think that that's what I personally strive for, is to be that selfless, you know, empathetic person. It's to me not about, you know, the successes that I leave so much, and it's not so much about, for, you know, the awards that I can get myself. It's about like what I did to actually make a difference in someone's life.
All right, and thank you for that very sincere, heartfelt perspective. That was pretty valuable. I'm glad that you were able to share that. Katie, did Amy give anything to us before we just have closing statement here?
No, not yet. I think go ahead with the closing statement.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so Leeanna, just the basic then. Since the alumni involvement matters a lot to you, and you talked about it a lot, and then we had my commercial that I gave you. I guess the last thing I would say is, what message would you have to alumni as a whole, just as a general message? Because we see the dynamic changing, like we mentioned, and what we want to try to do is use you guys as the catalyst, for lack of a better word, no pun intended, that could lead to an enhanced degree of involvement of alumni across the board in the future, with you guys being the people that made that big leap happen. So I wondered if you had any just overall generic statement to alumni, or message to alumni.
I would like to thank them, because although you do not, you know, hold a position as an active, you know, PTK member per se, for lack of a better word, you you hold a lot more weight than you think. Your words, your experiences mean a lot to us. They help us a lot, because you've been through it already, and you know what to expect, and you have so many amazing pointers, and that is probably even more valuable than actually being in the moment, you know, being an active member. Having that hindsight from you guys is something that can really, really push us even more. And I would like to just thank you for that, and continue doing what you're doing. And I would love to interact with more alumni members other than ones from my chapter. But I have connected with a few, and I'm so thankful that I did, because you guys, you know, really, really helped prepare me for my campaign and for what to expect. So I thank you for that.
And then, as my video seems to be behaving a little strangely, I think we're getting close to the end at just the right time, because I'm just seeing some flashing stuff. It's not impacting the audio, so we're getting to about the end point. I just wanted to conclude this with a very necessary expression of gratitude to you and to all of the officers you were exemplary among the officers in terms of the quality of the campaigns that you ran. It proved that you were all very well thought out in terms of what your priorities were. So you deserve a lot of compliment for that. Also, you deserve a lot of compliment as a group and you individually also for the professional manner in which you guys conducted your business over the campaign period, in spite of the stress that came with it and was elevated during this process because of the conversion to online. And honestly, this is because it was online. I did more research on the officer elections this year than in past years when it didn't involve anyone from our region. And honestly, when I first looked at the pictures of all you guys, I said, wow, these guys did a great job. This is coming soon to a boardroom near you. You guys did a great job making a professional presentation. And a lot of times with youth, that's a sell that's a little bit harder to make on people because a lot of times youth doesn't understand it. You guys got it. And you guys understood it from the outset, and it made such a great presentation and image to project of Phi Theta Kappa to the world. And so on behalf of all of us, you represented us very, very well with your campaign. Each and every one of you did, you specifically did as well. So I just want to say thank you for running a heartfelt campaign and for carrying yourself in a classy, professional manner, because it is not lost on anyone. And you are particularly very, very professional with your approach and treating your audience with respect, which is what a professional approach is all about.
Thank you. We had an amazing group this year, a very large group, but an amazing group. And I know that each of us are going to go on and do amazing things, whether it be in an international office position or not. And I'm so thankful that I had this chance to really meet, all 38 of us. And it just was something that I never in a million years thought I would get to do. So, thank you for this opportunity. I never thought that I would, be asked to speak to university, on this type of level. And I'm so appreciative. And this has been, such a great time. I'm so glad I got the chance to connect with the two of you.
And so with that, just there's one thing I want to ask you when we stop rolling that will be done with, but this pretty much concludes our conversation. For our audience, I really want to thank you and thank Katty for helping me with this for you. I very much appreciate the time that you've taken and the thoughts that you've shared and the thoughts you put into giving our audience some real content to chew on and consider for people that want to follow in your footsteps and people, including yourself, who want to follow in the path that we've undertaken as alumni as well. So you will be hearing from me on that point, I can promise.
Good, I'm glad.
Later today. So Leeanna, thank you so much. Best wishes for the rest of the semester as you navigate, particularly in New York, a very difficult time. And we will be in touch again soon.
Thank you. Thank
you, Leeanna. Best of luck.
You too.